Hey YouTube, Andrew here, and I'm about to bring you all my Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion deck profile for standard format. Man, I gotta say, feels quite nice finally getting to have my boy Vermillion back in standard. I've tried out a little bit of the deck so far. I definitely don't feel like Vermillion's a meta-defying deck like Gandiva, Overlord, or Chronojet, but it's a pretty solid deck in this format. At best, I'd place it in tier 2. And I definitely feel a lot happier that the deck's returned than for it to not come back at all. Anyways, onto the profile. Starting off, we have Spark Kid Dragoon as your starter. You can technically run any standard starter you want, but I'd prefer to play the Narukami starter for the Narukami standard deck. For your grade 1, you run Red River Dragoon. I run 1 of it in the ride deck and 3 of it in the main deck. His ride line skill is when it's ridden upon by a grade 2 Narukami unit, you can add 1 copy of Eternal Thunderbolt from your deck to your hand. And his other skill is when it boosts the rear guard, you get to counterblast 1, choose an opponent's back row unit and bind it. And if you did not get to bind from his skill, you get to soul charge 2. Next up, Thunderstorm Dragoon. When he's ridden upon by a grade 3 Narukami unit, you get to check the top 7 cards of your deck and choose between either a Narukami unit or Eternal Thunderbolt from among them and add them to your hand. I gotta say, that's a pretty sweet skill, even for premium. Like, if I was to utilize this guy in premium, getting to have a free Narukami card from his top 7 search skill would be quite nice. And finally, his rearguard skill is when he's placed while you have a Narukami Vanguard, Soul Charge 1, and Thunderstorm gets plus 5,000 power for the remainder of the turn. So he's really good for getting more cards and for filtering up your soul. Finally, the boss man of the deck himself, Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. His skills are act once per turn, counterblast 1, choose 2 of your Narukami units on board and they get plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn, and then Vermillion gets to attack the opponent's entire front row. And his other skill is when this unit's attacked, and if your opponent, you get to discard a card from your hand, and if your opponent has 4 or less damage, you deal 1 damage to them. Now for the main deck. Starting off, we have a playset of the key card of the deck, Eternal Thunderbolt. This card's skill is when activated, if your opponent attack any rearguard your Vanguard attacks gets bound instead of retired. And its other skill is when your opponent's rearguard gets bound from Eternal Thunderbolt's skill, your whole front row gets plus 5,000 power. Your whole front row gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. And a sweet bonus this card has is that if you want, you can activate this card from your drop zone. But if you do, it gets bound from the drop zone. So you pretty much get to activate this card as many times as you want, whether it's in your hand or in your drop zone. I gotta say, this is a pretty sweet card. Now for triggers. Drag Veta as your over trigger, because free restanding is really nice. 3 draw triggers. 8 critical. 4 heal triggers. Self-explanatory. Now for grade 1s, for draw PGs. Grade 1 PGs. If you ever wanna use this deck for tournament, you'll definitely want to take one of this out for a copy of Sanctitude. For if you play against any Stride decks, of course. Next up, 4 copies of Rising Phoenix. So he has an auto drop zone skill and a act rearguard skill. Its auto drop zone skill is when an opponent's rearguard is bound from effect, you get to superior call Rising Phoenix from the drop zone. And his other effect is you can retire this guy to give your Vanguard to choose one of your units, and it gets plus 5,000 till the end of the turn. So getting to have a free drop zone caller and a unit that can give free power is really sweet. Next up, 3 Red River Dragon. Now for grade 2s, 4 Thunderstorm Dragon. 3, I mean. Next up, 4 Dragonic Death Scythe. If your opponent has no rear guards in their front row, he gets plus 5,000 power. And his other skill is when he's placed on rear guard, Soul Blast 2, choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards and bind it. And if you did not get the bind, you get to draw a card. So it's a solid power-up card and a solid draw extender as well. Next up, 2 copies of Drag Ritter Latifla. So when she attacks an opponent's grade 3 or greater unit, she gets plus 5,000 power for all of your opponent's front open rearguard circles. And our other skill is when she's placed, and if you've activated an order card that turn, you get to Soul Blast 1, check the top 5 cards of your deck, and add any one of them from among them to your hand. Pretty sweet adding card if you'd ask me. And finally for grade 2s, 2 copies of Drag Ritter Cassine. So you get to bind this card, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards from their bind zone, and they go to the bottom of their deck. And then after that, you get to choose 2 of your units. Actually, let me reread the card. If you choose 2 cards for this effect, choose your Vanguard, and it gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the turn. So if your opponent ends up sending cards from their drop zone to the bottom of the deck from his skill, your Vanguard gets a free plus 5 bonus for the rest of the turn. Pretty okay card in my opinion. And finally, 3 copies of Vermillion. So that is it for my standard Vermillion deck profile. I hope you all liked it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content. And I hope you all have an awesome day. See you later.